All right, everybody. So we're going to go over the Sustainable Energy Regents review questions that we had in class for today. All right, you'll see that these questions are similar to the old Regents. All right. So for the sake of time, we know that this is a long exam, right? So one of the things that we can do, let's go straight to the question, and we're going to use the ability of annotation as well to help us to get to the answer. So starting at 15, it says using evidence from the maps, right? So using evidence from the maps, construct an explanation that describes how a human activity may have been affected by the availability of limestone and dolostone in New York State. All right. So when I'm looking, they want me to explain, right? I need to make an explanation that describes a human activity. What are humans doing, right? When I see human activity, what are humans doing that could be affected by the availability of limestone and dolostone, right? So the first question I got to ask myself is what is limestone and dolostone even used for, right? So when I'm going back to my reading, right, and let's say this is for the sake of time, I'm going to look and scan in my reading to see if they mention anything about what limestone and dolostone are used for, right? I'm looking here. I don't necessarily see what limestone and dolostone are used for. Let me see if the prior map tells me. Okay, so I see limestone and dolostone. So one good trick you can do is, hey, I'm gonna underline the key terms that the question is asking for. I'm gonna underline it in my reading as well, right? So I see limestone and dolostone mines comprise the third largest number of mines in New York State. I'm looking for what they're used for. It says right here, these rocks are primarily used as crushed stone in the construction industry. So let me highlight that. Limestone and dolostone are used as crushed stone in the construction industry, meaning that these rocks, right, limestone, dolostone, are used for construction. Remember that? They're used for construction. Now the question is saying, using evidence from the map, right? I need to construct an explanation about what humans are doing, right? Whatever that humans are doing, how could it be affected by the availability of limestone and dolostone? So I know limestone and dolostone are used for construction. Could the maps tell me what construction is taking place? So when I look at this first map, it tells me the limestone and dolostone mines, right? And I'm looking at the second map and it tells me highways. You can even take a look and maybe even pause the video to even see, is there some sort of relationship between where the mines are located and the highways that I see, right? And so when I'm looking, I see a whole bunch of mines right around here, right? And I see a major highways, right, in that same area. I see mines that are the triangles, right? That are bunched up right around this eastern part of New York. And I see these lines that also represent a highway. So, what is the connection? Wherever that I see mines for dolostone and limestone, I also see highways. What's the connection? Could it be that limestone and dolostone is used to build highways? Right? Every time that I see a mine, right, a mine location, I'm seeing generally highways as well. So in my answer, I'm probably going to have to mention, right, that number one, the use of limestone and dolostone, right? So what did we see in the reading? Limestone and dolostone is used as crushed stone for construction, right? So then I gotta ask myself, construction of what? Maybe it could be that where they're used to construct highways. All right. Maybe they're used to construct highways. So now when I'm looking to see describe the human activity, right? How can it be affected by the availability of limestone and dolostone? Well, these maps in areas that I don't see a limestone or dolostone map, I also don't see a highway. In areas that I do see a limestone and dolostone mine, I see a highway. So maybe I can say the human activity is that humans, what is the human activity? Humans are building highways, right? Used Humans are building highways from the crushed stone. Human are used, human are building highways from the crushed stone, right? The crushed stone that is produced from limestone and dolostone. From the crushed stone, use the highways from the crushed stone that is produced by limestone and dolostone. And how does it affect availability? We can also add that highways are built near limestone and dolostone mines. All right. So, did I talk about the human activity? Yes. Did I use evidence from the map, right? Where I'm stating about how the highways, right, are also in the same location near limestone and dolostone mines. Yes, they are. So, how could they have been affected? Well, the highways are built right next to where their limestone and dolostone mines. And that's going to be my answer. So I mentioned the human activity. I mentioned the purpose of limestone and dolostone. My answer includes what is shown in the map, right? And therefore, I'm connecting it together to show how it would have been affected, right? So if you wanted to include in your answer, no highways are built near limestone and dolostone mines, you could also say that as well, right? All right, so we're going to look at number 17 now, right? So it says, which statement below correctly identifies a benefit, right? So correctly identifies a benefit. I'm just going to highlight benefit, right? So that means that it has to be something good, right? Something good, something positive, and a benefit to whom? A local community. So it has to be something good and positive to a local community, to humans, right? When comparing these two design solutions for resurfacing roads. Now, what are they talking about, these two design solutions, right? Well, let's take a look. And I'm going to go to my reading. So I see mines in New York State must be reclaimed, right? When the mine is no longer in operation, this means the environmental effects of the mines must be reversed by returning the land to an ecological or economically usable condition, right? So in class, we learned what reclaim mean, right? It's pretty much after an area has been mining, humans are trying to restore that land, right? We're trying to restore habitats, we're trying to restore the environment after mining has taken place. It says the photographs below show two stages of reclamation. The Woodburn Flat Mine in Sullivan County, New York, right? So I saw it talks about two stages, and the question mentioned something about two design solutions. All right, so this probably may be the first solution. So it says Photograph one shows a portion of the Neversink River with 600 newly planted indigenous black willow trees. Photograph two shows a human-made 35-acre pond. It is surrounded by planted vegetation natural to that area. All right. And we see a recycled asphalt paving model. So we are recycling asphalt paving model, okay? And so I see here recycled road surface, I'm seeing a bunch of different things. So when I'm looking at this statement, right, and it says correctly identifies a benefit, this is going to be key because when I'm looking at my multiple choices, I'm going to eliminate, remember, process of elimination, I'm going to eliminate what does not sound like a benefit, okay, to the local community. All right, local quarries supplying natural paving materials will use more fuel for trucking and processing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Using more fuel, that doesn't sound like a benefit. I may have to pass that one, right? Let's look at two. It says recycled asphalt pavement will use more petroleum products. Using more petroleum, right, in the form of fuel and emulsifier. All right, if I pronounce that wrong, it's perfectly fine. You're gonna make it. All right, but once again, we're using more. Hmm, maybe that's not a benefit. All right. Three, recycled asphalt pavement does not require reclamation. Reclamation will extend the lifespan of existing quarries. Well, first two options telling me I'm using more of something, right? Fuel, petroleum, these are fossil fuels, right? But here it says it does not require reclamation. We just read a whole passage about how humans can try and restore land, reclamation, right, to an area that's been mined. But this process says it doesn't require. Maybe this is a possibility. I'm gonna have to come back to that. And it says blasting, crushing, and processing cost are higher with recycled asphalt pavement. Costs are higher. Does that sound like a benefit for the community? I think not. So what's my best answer? It's going to be choice three. All right. All right, so we're looking at our next question, right? Based on answers of questions 6 through 10 on the information below and on your knowledge of Earth and space science, right? So I'm going to go first to the question, all right? And I have to ask myself, with every question that you go to, you got to ask yourself, is this a question that I'm going to get my answer from diagrams, charts, or even the reading? Or is this a question that is based on content knowledge, right? Let's find out. So, number eight, it says, how does the production of electricity by hydroelectric power plants at Niagara Falls rather than by burning fossil fuels affect Earth's atmosphere and change the climate, right? So, how does the production of electricity by hydroelectric power plants, all right? Now, I'm going to go back, I'm going to look at my reading, right? And here's the two things that I'm looking for. How does hydroelectric power, right? How does it affect Earth's atmosphere? And how does it change the climate? Rather than burning fossil fuels. That's the two things I'm looking for when I'm scanning my reading and my diagram, right? So when I'm looking at my reading, and you can take the moment to pause the video, right? You can pause the video, but remember, I'm looking for two things. How is it affecting Earth's atmosphere, the gases on Earth, right? The air on Earth, and how is it affecting the climate, all right? Or climate change, yep. And how does it affect the Earth's climate and Earth's atmosphere and change the climate? So you can pause and read, right? And I'm just going to scan. And so while I'm scanning, I don't see anything yet that speaks about how it's affecting the Earth's atmosphere or changing the climate with this first passage, right? I'm scanning, scanning. I'm also looking, the power of water is utilized at Niagara Falls. It's telling me about hydroelectric power, but I don't see anything talking about how it's affecting the atmosphere, right? Or how it's affecting the climate. So you know what that tells me? This is a C question. What do I mean by C? This is a content question, right? So let's take a look, and I'm looking at my choices, right? So, and we're going to see which choice is true or false, right? So when I look at one and it says hydroelectric power plants use a renewable resource, right? We've learned that hydroelectric power plants are using what's that renewable resource? Water. That is true. It is using water that increases atmospheric oxygen levels, which negatively impacts global climate. Um, did we talk about how dams increase the oxygen in the air? I don't think we've ever connected oxygen and using dams or using hydroelectric power, right? So this looks funny, so I think I'm gonna pass on that. Two, hydroelectric power plants use a renewable resource, that is true, that decreases atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, which positively impacts global climate. Well, when I look, burning fossil fuels, right? We know that burning fossil fuels produces what, everybody? Carbon dioxide, CO2. And what do we know about CO2? We know that this affects, right, global warming, right? It increases the Earth's temperature, right? Increases the Earth's temperature, right? That's what happens when we burn fossil fuels. But hydroelectric power plants are not burning fossil fuels. So maybe because of not burning fossil fuels, maybe there's less carbon dioxide heading into the atmosphere, right? Which positively impacts global climate. So this is a potential, but it's squiggly. Let's look at choice three. Hydroelectric power plants use a renewable resource, that is true, that increases water vapor in the atmosphere, which causes the local climate to be more humid. Interesting. I thought that increasing water vapor means that there's an increase in evaporation, right? Evaporation. I know my writing is horrible, but it's supposed to be evaporation. I don't think we've mentioned anything or the reading talks about how hydroelectric power plants is increasing evaporation, right? I don't see anything mentioned about how it's producing water vapor as well too. So maybe I'm gonna pass by this question, this choice. Choice four, hydroelectric power plants use a renewable resource that decreases water vapor in the atmosphere, which causes the local climate to be more arid, right? Now, once again, even though these statements right here may be true, we have to ask ourselves, does hydroelectric power plants have anything to do with the amount of water vapor? I don't remember speaking or teaching anything like that. So if I'm going to choose my best option, I'm going to choose choice two, right? Because I know for a fact burning fossil fuels increase carbon dioxide. But if we're not burning fossil fuels, right, we're definitely going to decrease carbon dioxide. And that means that the effect of global warming is being reduced. Choice two looks like my best answer. All right, guys, so you're gonna head to the next video for question 9 and 21 on sustainability review questions. All right, I'll see you over there.